Hello and welcome to the Mindset Nebula, where we talk about design, talk about tech, talk about SAP, and sometimes, like today, we get to talk about other fun topics. I'm your host, Jonathan Bragg, and with me today are three other lovely people from Mindset. I'm just going to go around the screen here and talk about a few things. And I'd like to welcome first Sarah to the podcast this time. Sarah, how's it going this time?
Great. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. It's Friday. Happy Friday. And next on the list we have a recent member, Rob. Rob, how's it going today?
I'm doing really well. Again, it's Friday. It's beautiful outside, less humid than it's been. So excited for the day and the weekend, and excited for the next hour.
Yeah, absolutely. We're gonna have a fun conversation. And last but definitely not least, we have newcomer to the podcast. We have Matt. Hi, Matt. How's it going today?
It's good. I'm trying to get rested up from a late flight back home. Yeah, it's Friday. I agree. So looking forward to the weekend. But very excited to be here. So try not to be too hard on me today.
We're gonna take all three of us and push most of the conversation straight to you, just so everybody knows where Matt's perspective comes from.
This is actually turning into hot seat. So Matt, you're on the hot seat. So.
Wouldn't want
to
to
put you on the spot, Matt, but tell us this.
Exactly. So yeah, with that, we wanted to introduce the topic here, and the topic is a fun one today. You know, it's not very specific to SAP or design or tech, but just all around workplace. And we're doing this because we really want to talk about some of the meetup activities that Mindset was able to host this week, and we really want to talk about some of the get back to work things that are going on within the industry, how people are meeting up these days, how people have felt transitioning from a truly remote kind of COVID time workplace to maybe a little bit of a mix, or maybe going back into the office, and just how that's going right now. And I think it's a super interesting topic. Obviously, you know, we just did a lot of these meetups in person in our Minneapolis office with folks, and tried to get people out and together and build relationships again after, what was it, guys? 16 months away from an actual office, which is just sad, because the brand new Mindset office is beautiful, and it was the first time I saw it. I think it had a chance to open in February of last year for 1 to 2 weeks, and then immediately shut down. And I think maybe Gavin got to go there a few times, but nobody else got to really see it and enjoy it. So it was really good to be there. But yeah, kind of, I guess, as a quick introduction, maybe I'll run down just a couple of things we were able to put together for the full team, and we can kind of go through and just give a few thoughts of each. So at least in this week's meetup, you know, we were able to really bring a lot of the extended team together, you know, for folks based in our headquarter area of Minneapolis, plus folks based a little bit around the country, you know, getting people back to meet in person in some of our either dinner events. We did a baseball game event, and we got to do a great volunteer event for a good organization there in Minneapolis as well, while people were in town. So I think a lot of this topic is really important, and I think, you know, one of the things that really struck me as we went through the week was, to me, this felt like the right tone of work versus relationship. And I think, you know, a lot of people may sometimes go down the line of, well, maybe a ton of work didn't happen while we had everybody together in town, but, you know, I think our leadership was right in saying, you know, this is about getting people back together, knowing that people can make relationships and make sure that people can finally connect from this 16th month hiatus. But yeah, maybe I'll just kind of go around the room a little bit and get people's thoughts as to that. Maybe I don't know, Rob, if you want to kick that off a little bit.
Sure. Well, I appreciated the fact that you know, when we got together for our first all-team meeting, which was Monday, we, you know, one of the things that Gavin emphasized was, you know, in his list of goals for the agenda was, you know, there were several kind of work agreement items that were listed in there, but his primary goal with a bullet was to build relationship. And it's one of our core values that we discuss. And one of the things I really love about mindset is the depth to which it kind of lives its core values. And deep and trusting relationships is one of those. And so it wasn't really surprising to me that Gavin put that up front, but it really set the tone, I think, around expectations and why we're doing the things that we're doing. And to your point, John, there were still plenty of people delivering value for clients while we were there. There's a lot of people in meetings and still working and coding and doing all the things that we do day to day. But there was still an underlying expectation and tone of build relationship that I thought was really important. For me, I just joined relatively recently, and so I've started to meet people face to face in little drips here and there. It hasn't happened very broadly until this week. And so it was very gratifying for me to have the opportunity to actually sit with people and talk to them on at a deeper level, right? I've had meetings that are half hour over Zoom here and there, and you get to talk about topics, and even sometimes you'll talk about personal topics, but it's pretty surface. So having that, I think, is really important. The reason why you want deep and trusting relationships is it just leads to better outcomes ultimately, right? Better conversations, more open conversations, more empathy and listening, rather than just kind of talking through what point you have to make. And that foundation, I think, is vital. And for being new to the organization, I was very appreciative of it. And I know I'm not the only one, even on this podcast, that's relatively new. So it was vitally important and really, really great to see. And kudos to the leadership team for kind of setting that expectation up front. And I think it played out really well.
Yeah, that's great. We'll go over to Sarah. Yeah.
I was just going to jump in anyway.
Go for
it. But Rob, I think you really hit it on the point there of really building that empathy in that relationship. And I think, to me especially, my work is user experience, and you always have to start with that human that you are working with. What are their pain points? What are their challenges? What resonates with them? What gets them excited? And to that same point of where we start with all of our clients, we also have to start with our team. And so actually meeting people in person helped me to actually see the human behind the computer screen and actually see what they bring to the table, what challenges they have in their day-to-day lives that maybe I can't see on that 12-inch computer screen I have in front of me, but whatever it might be. It's really helpful to see that human-centered approach, not only where we go out into the world with clients, but also where we come together as a team for mindset. And so I think that's really what resonated with me as well.
Yeah, couldn't agree more, especially from kind of your view being in the design realm. It's like, oh, this is great to get people together and I can learn a ton of pain points right at once.
Exactly.
Matt, how about you?
So yeah, and Rob, and Sarah, absolutely agree with both sides. For me, I'm primarily client facing, and the client that I'm with now, they're still full remote. At this point, they're still trying to determine what the go back to work on site plan is going to look like. I've been with the client here, I think, almost 3 months now. And really, it's trying to establish a relationship while you're remote. And, obviously, pre-pandemic, that would have been a lot easier when you're sitting across the table from them. But now it takes even more effort to be able to do that. You're having to almost work a little harder to be able to, reach out and really with whatever means that you possibly can to be able to build that relationship, to establish the empathy, to help with, the project that, you are working on. So I the client that I'm with, I'm speaking to them mostly on a daily basis, multiple times per day. And it isn't necessarily just around things that we're doing on the project. It's also, having a conversation, that human interaction on a personal level to build and enhance that relationship.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think during this time, it's like how creative can we be to make sure those relationships don't start to wane after this 16 months. And it's funny, it's like all these things that we've just talked about already are the exact things that 2 years ago wouldn't have even been a conversation starter, let alone like, oh yeah, we went to a baseball game as a team. That wouldn't have been news. But it was something that just, I think brings people together and wants people to know more about one another and work together.
Interesting. I was surprised just a little bit at how quickly it started to feel natural. When the pandemic started and we got a few months into it, I remember having lots of conversations with people, of course, remotely or in my family, around what is everything going to look like when we come out of this? Are people going to go to a baseball game and sit right next to each other without a mask? Are they going to feel uncomfortable? You're going to have that kind of uneasy feeling all the time. And it was, at least in my mind, it slotted back into the comfortable zone pretty quickly and felt very natural and right.
Yeah, I agree. I had the same experience, and it was kind of these pockets of very normal, and then, oh yeah, we still have this thing to worry about in the back of my head. It was kind of that experience of, me flying in for the event was obviously the mask in the airport, mask in the plane, mask in the Uber, and then get to the baseball game and, oh, everything's fine here. It's like, so there's still that little short, small weirdness between different areas and different things. But you're right. It felt a lot more natural, quicker than I thought. So I think other things. One thing I wanted to comment on. A lot of our close friends and colleagues weren't able to join us. Our entire India team is obviously still going through a fairly big wave of COVID, and hopefully this is kind of the last round for them as well, and they'll be able to travel here shortly. But I think that was a big loss, just to be able to hang out with them, meet them, be able to talk about things in person on their front. And the biggest part of that, though, is I think a lot of the pictures that we posted within our own internal Slack environment, things like that, kind of seemed to lift their spirits as well. Like, wow, we're going to get there. We're going to get back to normal. This is going to be okay. And I loved that. I think our Paru, that's been on the podcast many times, commented on a few of those things, that, hey, keep doing this. This is really helping the team here see there's going to be a way out of this, which I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, and I think that goes to the point of like the power of community and the power of good teamwork too, of no matter where you are in the world, and you can kind of boost morale and that spirit by just working together. And I think that comes with that trust and that hope of everyone is going to get through it. And I mean, you can say that if you're in a really stressful project, like, how do you get through it? It's your team that helps you through. And so to that same extent, obviously to a lot more global scale, but I think we're all in this together and we're all here supporting each other, which is a huge thing too.
Yeah, exactly. Here's one more question, kind of on the specific to mindset front, and then we'll turn a little bit to more of the industry perspective. But a lot of you, let's see, joined Mindset during the pandemic, and so just love to know, how did you find building relationships coming into Mindset? Did you find it pretty easy to know who did what, or how to reach out to people, or was it a little challenging, just saying like, oh, I'm maybe I need to be in 14 Slack channels. Maybe I don't. Maybe I need a Zoom meeting for this, that, and the other. Well, what do you think?
So, I started with Mindset in early April, and I kind of joke about it where my previous role, March 22nd, 2020 was actually my last day on site, and basically, set up shop on the kitchen table, with my laptop, just working. And when I started with Mindset, everybody was kind of asking me, well, what's different about it? And it's like, well, just really the computing equipment's what's different, right? I mean, the environment's really the same. But kind of going back to building the relationship aspect, kind of from the two different areas, one with Mindset, being able to, I think really, Slack was a great help. The thing that we were kind of doing with Donut to do introductions, I think has been really beneficial to basically kind of help engage, or at least kind of push people into engaging during these times. Because the thing is that, for the last 15 to 16 months, everybody's been kind of isolated, and you start to kind of get, almost kind of feeling in your own bubble. And it really is kind of taking, in some respects, kind of a push to be able to get out there and, reach out and to, start that conversation. So, those have been two great things that have been absolutely beneficial. And I do want to give a shout out to our HR team, because they've done an amazing job as far as onboarding and really starting the conversation, towards, getting your feet wet with Mindset itself. On the client side, I've been very fortunate that I have a colleague that I've worked with previously who's on this same account, and she's been absolutely instrumental in doing the introductions and helping start that conversation. So, it's like, and like I said before, it's a little bit more work, but being able to get out there and have that conversation and start that to move forward.
Yeah, definitely. And I think from my perspective as one of the folks who was here years before the pandemic started, I think that's part of it maybe that I took for granted too. That was, oh, I know who to reach out to for X, Y, and Z, and I can quickly start a conversation with folks. But just to to see the team grow so much through the pandemic was great, and how we can keep remote working alive and keep our clients' business problems at the front of mind this entire time has been just hugely successful, I think. And it kind of brings about probably our next topic here, which is just ways of working in the future. How will we work in the future, and how do we return to work? Is that 100%? Is that is it different for everyone? And I think one of the things in the industry, and, Rob, you pointed this out right before we started the recording here, was how is SAP planning to do that in general? And maybe I don't know if you want to talk about that for
Sure.
just a few minutes here.
Well, it was just recently, still in this month, actually, SAP came out with a rather progressive announcement of their pledge to work and how they anticipate supporting their staff and giving them flexibility in the future. And it was pretty far reaching. And they're not the only one. There's other large organizations that have made some very significant changes to remote work and that. Kind of a couple of the highlights of theirs is, one is they want to be 100% flexible. Workplace is the norm, not the exception. So people are going to have their choice. You want to work in an office, we'll have an office for you. You want to work at home, we'll support your homework. But even more than that, they, when you work is also pledged to be pretty flexible, right? So as long as you can get your work done, you can do it on the timing that makes the most sense for you. And so, one of the things that was really challenging about this pandemic wasn't even just the fact that you had to work remotely, but all of a sudden you were thrust into, hey, you're also a quasi teacher because your kids are now at home, and you have schedules your daycare schedule got thrown out the window because they had to shut down because of COVID, and now you had kids underfoot, and everybody's schedules change so much.
Yeah.
Even as that starts to normalize, I think SAP saying, we want to support our works, our employees in the work schedules that make the most sense for them, where they can still meet their commitments to, kind of what their job is. And then they wrapped in these other things like, DEI is a big thing that has been talked about a lot over the course of the last year, and for very good reasons, with kind of a general awakening of diversity and inclusion in the country. And they included that in their statements, and they want to be very inclusive, in which people can work from home or at the office or remotely, kind of giving everybody the same types of opportunity, right? That's equity. And then also sustainability, right? They really prioritizing sustainability and health with the environments that they build. And so they've taken these other big topics and they kind of all rolled it into one big pronouncement of, here's the future of work at SAP. And it was I thought it was pretty broad and far reaching. And given our relationship in the SAP ecosystem and the company in general, I was fascinated to read it. And I'm curious to see how it, how it rolls out.
Yeah, exactly. That was my curious point, because you kind of see in the industries that we deal with, different leaders coming out with different strategies at the moment. I'm just kind of almost a little bit waiting on the sidelines to see how that's going to react in the marketplace. I don't know if there was a couple other CEOs. I think was it Jamie Dillon from JP Morgan Chase, and actually Apple kind of said the same thing, I think, about how productivity, quote unquote, only really happens in an in-office setting. And I I took that one of two ways right away. I was like, one, I've been a remote worker since I started Mindset 5 years ago.
You took it personally.
I was like, I think I've been able to be productive over the time. I'm not sure, but no. The other side of that was it's interesting. It might make sense to them based on roles. They might be talking from a personal perspective as well, that as a leader, maybe even a team leader, as a lot of direct reports or a lot of responsibilities, that they think, if I have people here and I see them busy and meeting with one another, then I know there's productivity happening, versus the the elusive unknowing. And I don't like that very much. I don't know. It's an interesting perspective from what they've put out there. No other thoughts on that too?
Yeah, from my standpoint, kind of what I've seen and what I've heard, has been, kind of all over the place, right? Where obviously SAP is going to 100% full flexible, right? Where there are other companies out there that are like, absolutely not, thou shalt come back to, work. And, I 100% agree from, the standpoint that it's obviously not a one size fits all decision, right? I think organizations need to look at it within themselves to make a determination on what makes sense for them. Obviously, productivity is on one side of the equation. Cost is also a consideration on the other. Companies may end up coming to the conclusion that everybody's got to come on site because the overhead cost associated with maintaining those office spaces, has to be justified. Otherwise, kind of what's the point in having them? So, I think everybody will get there. I think kind of to the point that's been seen out there as different companies come out with different strategies for themselves. It's not going to be a easy, path for a lot of organizations. I think there's a lot of soul searching that has to be done to make a determination on what makes sense for their organization and weigh everything into that decision point.
Yeah, and kind of to your point, John, before, of it depends on the roles themselves too. It kind of reminds me of, I know Rob and I just wrapped up a training with SAP for design thinking, where they actually proposed a topic of how would you conduct a hybrid design thinking workshop, so for people in person and on a computer screen. And I think that's really what our teams grappled with, was how is that even possible, and how can you still get that team morale, and how do you actually move forward with that in the future, when, especially for design thinking, our work is really based on our users and our participants of these sessions to actually come and be as open and honest as possible, or for us to go and actually see what their day-to-day work life is. And so some of that really is in person. I'm sure many of you have had like tours of, I don't know, like I just moved into a new house and I've had to FaceTime my grandparents to be like, this is our new house. Like that's
Mhm.
not the same as actually walking through it and seeing all that's here, all the photos on the walls, all the actual environment that comes with someone and their work. And so I think some of that has to depend on the role, but also how can you adapt that, to see, to the point of SAP. I think for that, the hybrid is, you can also expand your reach. You can connect with people around the world and be able to help create solutions to some of their challenges, no matter where you are. And so finding that balance, I think, is a little bit of the way of the future too.
There's mindset is similar to a lot of other companies too, in that there's been remote workers for a while. So John, you've been in that boat, as you mentioned, for quite a while, and still been largely productive and working with the team and in many different ways. So I think mindset's already kind of figured out a little bit of how you maintain that cohesiveness. And certainly events like this week, I think, are an important part of that. And that was the recognition, is like, yep, we do work together. We're off, we're online, we're collaborating that way and making it happen. However, that works a lot better if we also stop once in a while and say, hey, let's all get together face to face, have more meaningful conversations. Let's all go over to Sarah's house and look at the photos on the wall, so we could get a better appreciation of her.
All are welcome.
But those are I just think they're foundational elements and activities that then enable us to kind of go back to our home office and meet online and collaborate in a much more meaningful way. And to Sarah's point, be open about our challenges, as well as what excites us, and have that be a richer conversation online than if we didn't have that relationship that we built. So I think that's a way that we really kind of brought that back to the fold this week, that I thought was super important. And being able to, I spent time with Matt, at the Twins game, and talked to him, and he and I hadn't met previously. And so I feel differently seeing you now on the screen, Matt, than I would have had we not, had that opportunity and spent that time together. So I thought it was really, really helpful and important. And it's probably something that all of these companies that we've been talking about will need to maintain some semblance of bringing the personal interaction into whatever that kind of hybrid component is.
Yeah, and I think you hit the key there, Sarah and Rob, there last. What is and what does hybrid look like for people? Because we've proved now for 16 months that this is a work possibility, and we have the tools, we have the digital means to be able to do this. And so in order to be open, in order to be inclusive, in order to work all of those things around, this hybrid model is here to stay, right? And
yeah, it's almost a necessity, right, John? Because the way that we're recruiting now, which that's the other advantage that this has brought forward, is like, well, we're not relegated to the pool of applicants, in our backyard. We're looking more on a national level now, and so we can hire people like Matt that's in Topeka, and we don't have to, that's not a situation that we would have been able to entertain had you not opened up your thinking to, well, we're remote, so it really doesn't matter. So there's a lot of advantages to that, and then Mindset's certainly taken advantage of that and hiring really quality, high level talent from a lot of different places.
Yeah, and I was going to tag on to that too, Rob, because I absolutely agree. Because even in the college recruiting that I've done, within the last couple of years, the students that are coming up, you're looking for prospective job opportunities, are really asking about, not only what's the job entail, but what's the work location even look like, right? And so I agree that a hybrid model really is the way, the path forward. So, and really going back to hiring talent is really probably first and foremost, obviously, other than what I'm doing is where am I going to be working? Is it going to be from home? Is it going to be in an office? Or are we talking a hybrid? So kind of the go forward is that everybody that really is out there trying to recruit really needs to be taking that into consideration.
Yeah, they definitely do. I mean, it's like you hear all around. It's definitely here to stay, and it should be for the better, for sure. I went to it ended up being a really, really interesting webinar. Somebody threw on my calendar, and it was called Unboxing Work, and it was about being able to get back into the workplace and how that's going to feel. And they had was it the CEO from Great Places to Work had been doing a lot of research on different companies at different times, and what he said is in some of the research that they had been doing, the companies that have not yet made a position, have not gone forward and said it's either going to be this way, or here's our approach, are the ones that are weathering this situation the best right now. And he said it's not because they don't have a viewpoint, it's that they know this time is about people, and people move at different speeds, their comfort levels are different at different times. And yeah, maybe we all know that things are going to be normal again by September, October, November, sometime at the end of this year. But how does that reflect against people? You can't really tell them that. And people will eventually return. And maybe it's 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days. Who knows? It's up to them a little bit. He said they're doing really well in their research with the market and the people and their recruiting and how they're responding to those questions. So I thought that was a really, really, really interesting comment.
Yeah, that's like allowing yourself to remain open and collect more data and get feedback. I mean, it's a very agile approach, right? And it's like don't make a decision until you have to. You can see the reasoning there, and it's because I think everybody's still normalizing a little bit, right? We just talked about our first experiences back in large connection with people, and how does it feel, and what are you comfortable with, and there's 16 months worth of worry and anxiety at different levels with different people that have to be factored into that. So those comments, I think, resonate a bit with me. But it's interesting that there's data, right, to back it up. That's always a little more reassuring to see it, because I think there can be something that makes sense, but then doesn't play out as you think when you look at the actual data. So it'll be interesting to continue to follow that.
The other side of that was more the funny side, is that after he said that, he said, and by the way, a lot of those companies are going out and negotiating new leases on office space while they can. Yeah, it's like that's being open while also having a longer term view / opinion.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think any other topics, any other big things we can bring up from the week here, kind of getting together people's thoughts on how it went. Otherwise, I think that was most of the topics that we had for today.
I just really, again, liked being in the office and seeing not even just the conversations I had, but seeing the other conversations happening around me, brought a sense of optimism and excitement, right? Seeing conference rooms with people in them and whiteboarding and all of that was just exciting to see. And you know, to the extent, like John, you mentioned that it can also be a harbinger of optimism for people who are not yet out of the tunnel and just are looking for light at the end of it. I think that was a great outcome.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think one of the biggest pieces for me was just enjoying those little conversations. I mean, the whole time I've been working for Mindset, I've been remote other than this week. And so it was really nice to have those moments, because even at my past roles, I always said in the past 16 months, like, I miss those swivel chair moments of, I just have a quick question I want to ask you, or even just, you know, taking a break from staring at a computer screen just to smile at someone or something like that. But I think one of the big takeaways was our design team is partly remote anyways, just based on where people are located. And we're working on a client project, and on Tuesday we were able to stand in front of a whiteboard and actually break open a topic. It wasn't like something where you actually have to plan a Slack call or plan a Zoom call. We were all just kind of like walked into the room and we were like, okay, yeah, let's talk about this one thing that we've been struggling with for the past couple of weeks. Let's break it open. And that collaboration is really nice to see. And it's also nice to know that going forward, we can continue to do both hybrid and also whiteboarding, but it's nice to have that collaboration possible in the workplace.
Yeah, it's super quick. I have to say that being able to say yes to grabbing coffee with someone instead of, you know, walking to the other end of the house to the coffee machine where nobody else is was very cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
And yeah, and you know, it kind of, I think my biggest takeaway is, you know, there is light at the end of the tunnel for all of this, you know, and seeing everybody together, you know, a lot of people for the first time, you know, really honestly made a huge impact for me, because for the last 16 months, I've just, you know, been remote, sitting by myself, you know, really almost no human interaction other than virtually, you know. And this is the first time I've been able to be part of an event where, you know, I felt normal, and, you know, and really was reassuring that, you know, the last, you know, year plus has been, you know, obviously not a fun time. There is greener pastures forward, and there is light at the end of the tunnel.
Absolutely. Well, cool. Thanks all for joining. Sarah, Rob, Matt. It's an awesome conversation. Very interesting. We could probably go for 2 more hours just thinking of random things that we loved about this week and being able to hang out.
I would
yeah,
say if anyone wants to see what we did this week, they should definitely check out our social media pages. We've got really great photos of us volunteering or just together. So if you want that morale, we're here to support you too.
Definitely. Alrighty. Well, thanks very much, everyone. And with that,
Thanks, John.
we will talk to you all soon.
Yeah, thanks, John.
Alrighty.
Okay, bye, everyone.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.